Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldscuff. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will start reading the Silmarillion/The Lord of the Rings fic by Bloodwing Blackbird, The Halls They Leave, which is a continuation to And Now Each Night I Count the Stars. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. Note, this fic is rated explicit. On with the show. The Halls They Leave by Bloodwind Blackbird. Chapter 1. It is dark, for it is always dark in the cells of Barad-dûr. That is where he must be, for that is where he always is. He stretches out a hand, but he keeps stretching farther and farther. He extends his other arm, lifts it above his head. Where are the walls? There should be walls. There are always walls. Always there when he closes his eyes, when he stretches too far in any direction, when his mind gropes too far and fetches up against them, bruising itself every time. Sometimes he can forget, can drain his gaze on the horizon, can feel Halbarad walking beside him, breath steady as he steps, and feel that this world is the real one and can forget what he has forgotten. At night it is harder, for the world becomes quiet and the brightness no longer hides him from the eye. He can't see the boundaries of his prison anymore, but he knows they are still there, and knows that he will one day stretch far enough to touch the edges of it. He is still there, and part of him will always be, and one day he will go back to them. He reaches out ahead, into the darkness, and still finding nothing to touch, and he takes a step. There's water, silent, cool, stale, and sand that washes out between the toes of his right foot when the wave withdraws. He takes another step into the water. It's warmer already, and remembers a time, age upon age ago, when he had stood thus at the edge of the sea. His brothers had thought him afraid, but that had not been why he stopped. He wasn't afraid, at least, not of the ocean, but he had been waiting for the sea to take away all of the sand beneath his feet, to pull a little more of it out with each wave. He wanted to know how long would it take, wanted to see if he could keep standing once it was all gone. He hasn't thought of that in a very long time. Had he once been a child? There are children here, shining bright as the stars, with eyes dark as the spaces between them. The water is lapping at Maglor's ankles, hardly cold at all now. "What if we get lost?" the children ask, their eyes dark and serious, bright and laughing, gap-toothed, freckle-cheeked, a man-child, an elf-child, children that are both, neither, more. He loved them, loves them still, fears for them, but he does not deserve to love them, not when he has brought them here, to this dark place in his heart. Stay where you are, and I will come find you. If there is danger about, hide quiet and safe, but do not run away. The children laugh and they ask for a song. Maglor tries, but there is something that claws at his throat, that muffles the sound with its growls whenever he tries to sing. The children watch him, serious again, with eyes that forgive nothing. "If we are hiding, who shall find us?" You forget. He lets the thing in his throat speak for him. The water is up to his knees, and as warm as blood. I'm very wicked. I found you once, and there is nowhere you can hide that I cannot find you again. He's wrong, of course. One of the children is gone forever, lost somewhere Maglor cannot find him, and only one remains. That child takes his hand in the darkness and says, "What if you get lost?" A wind rises and steals any answer he could have given. Maglor woke to a sudden cold and a night that was but a little brighter than his dreams, the stars hiding themselves behind a thick pall of clouds. There was no moon. The others weren't far, he knew that, even wrapped in the shreds of his dream. Kirion and Halbarad were camped on a little birch grove by the river bank. Almedon to the west of the road, somewhere with the others. Aglarel was on watch. When he sat up, he could see her sitting on the rock by the Baranduin, just another dark shape in the gloom. Maglor was alone, for lately he couldn't abide to be close, couldn't carry the weight of conversation, of eyes watching him. Tired unto death of making sure that he showed nothing that might betray their fragile, unearned trust. Certain that even the warm light of the campfire showed every mark the enemy had left in him. He had already slipped somehow, exposed too much to Halbarad, because the night before, when he had offered to keep watch, Halbarad had refused to leave Maglor and sleep, sitting the whole watch a stone's throw away. He had shifted once, opening his mouth as if he had wanted to speak, and Maglor already knew what he would have said. "You are useless. You are weak and broken. Squalling child. Little sister. The unwanted. The tag-along. The stray. You take and give nothing back. Crying always for attention. And you ask for trust? For love? You do not even know what these things are." He heard it always. In his own voice. In his father's. Saruman's. But it would have been too much to hear it from Halbarad, so he had stood up and walked to the edge of the clearing, blood rushing loud in his ears, wishing he could still run, for if he could have, he would have gone then, west on the road, until the road ran into the sea, and perhaps he would not have stopped there. He couldn't do that any more, not when even walking wearied him and made him ache, so he just stood there letting silence build between them, brutal and impenetrable. Now Maglor looked at the road, at the path that could bear him to the sea if he were brave enough, and he looked the other way. Then he stopped, because he saw them, and he was already too late. He tried to shout, but maybe sleep still held him, for his voice could make no sound, and he was slow, so slow as he pulled on his boot and fumbled for his leg. His fingers were huge and clumsy, and he could not make any sense of the buckles and the straps, and he kept trying to call out, even though he could hardly draw breath. He threw aside the leg and grabbed his crutch and his spear and heaved himself upright. He ran, or tried to, stumbling and skidding down towards the ford. Aglaril heard him first and walked towards the road, a dark shadow against the fog that was rising from the river, but she turned to him, away from the doom that rushed ever nearer. Even as he tried to say, "No, behind you, don't look at me, you fool!" his throat burned like he had been screaming. The wind rose, just as it had in the dream, and carried with it a sound of hoofbeats, and the feeling of darkness filling Maglor's throat, lapping around his ankles, warm as blood. Aglaril heard it at last and turned away from him. Then she was running, shouting, drawing her sword. She reached the road and stood firm, too brave, too stupid to do otherwise. There were shouts from the trees, and the Dunedain were running to her aid. Too slow. Too slow. The 9 fell on Aglaril like rocks falling down a mountain, and she could not stand against them. He saw Eradan and Almiron with swords and fire. Halbarad's bow was singing and the riders did not fall, but he knew that Halbarad hadn't missed. Halbarad never missed. Aglaril fell in the road. He was close enough to see how she struggled to get back to her feet, determined, still, and he saw her struck down again, cuffed like a troublesome dog, dragged into the Baranduin, and he saw her trampled beneath their hoofs in the mud and the water. Maglor reached the road. The wind now bore the scent of a drowned city, of death and rot and the growth of the things that fed thereon. The song stopped. Is that what it had been? As he choked on the stench and riders stopped and turned. They knew him. "You are ours," they say, "beloved of the tower. You will return with us. You will stand beside us, above us. You will be forgiven. You will be made whole, only if you will lead us to our prize." "Blackbird, we must run!" Maglor didn't know who that was. Blackbird was someone he had lost, someone that was taken from him in the cells of Barad-dûr, a stranger who sang and walked and loved. He was someone that Maglor cast aside himself, even before that, while he still walked free beneath the sky. "I didn't mean it to be that bad for you," a buzzard had told him, picking at his corpse. He threw himself at the riders, a curse on his lips and a madness in his heart. A rage that it was not enough that he must fear these things still, but that he should hunt them down, harm his comrades. Even now they were fighting beside him, these unlikely friends, these mortals who had allowed him into part of their brief lives, even when they had less than nothing to offer in return. And he saw them falling, wry faces and rough jests, all prey to the terror of the Nine. The fog from the river was so thick that he could hardly see, so heavy that he could hardly move. And yet he can see the water, crawling slimy and sluggish over the bodies of his friends, mud and blood and slime and rot and shit and decay, and the bloated rotting faces of everyone he has ever loved. A cold hand touched his shoulder, and he could not win against them, but he would have died before he let one of them touch him again. So he whirled, a wild strike with the sharp edge of the glaive, a force of all his terror behind it. His vision cleared, and he saw Halbarrad's face, his face full of light, brightest thing Maglor can see, eyes wide and worried, hands filling with his own blood, desperately trying to gather himself up, to hold himself together. Belek falling to Turin's curse, but this Turin standing tall and unmoved. He has seen this before, in the halls of Barad-dûr. He sees his death. He sees you, Maglor. Sauron had warned him. Perhaps it had been a mistake to forget that. End of chapter 1. Stay tuned.